You know, there is the issue of abandonment of those on the lower rung of the society, especially in the north. And if you are talking about the north, this thing is even more prevalent in the northwest. I was in Sokoto a few days ago, and believe me, anybody, the media trust can do its own investigation, or any media organization can do its own investigation and establish what I'm going to say. I saw 2-year-olds walking the streets barefooted as almajiris. And believe me, I parked my car to buy something, and some of these 3-year-old children came to me crying, telling me they were hungry. Somebody in fact hugged me in his dirty clothes, you know, telling me he had not eaten for 3 days. He was about collapsing. And believe me, I shed tears. And who am I to provide solution to their problems? They are in several thousands. You see them everywhere. And I was speaking to a friend of mine who is based in Bauchi. He told me it's the same thing that obtains in Bauchi. That if I go to any part of the north, it's the same situation that obtains. So for God's sake, what are we saying? We shouldn't just limit the security summit, providing solution to our insecurity to just beautiful grammar and things like that. Media Trust has done its part by coming up with this summit, but then there is the problem of implementation. Nigeria has always had beautiful ideas, but the problem has always been implementation. Malam Abdullahi said none of the governors has arrived yet. We hope all of them, the 7 of them, are going to be in attendance, not even to be represented, because if they attend in person, that will give us even better hope that they are more serious about solving the issues. So I know that there is the issue of whether it's not just about political will. Some of the governors, I believe, have the political will, but they are also saying they are toothless bulldogs in terms of their ability to command the security forces operating in their own states.
Empowerment. So exactly. It's a multi-layered problem.
Multi-layered, exactly. The constitutions call them chief security officers of their own states.
Who do not really.
But in Kano, we've seen situations, countless situations, where the governor has directed the police commissioner to do one thing, and the police commissioner will tell him no publicly. He will come out to say, no, I won't, that I'm taking my orders from above. So that automatically reduces the governor to nothing in terms of ability to control the security of his own state. You know, the governor of Zamfara State, like I said earlier in the newspaper review, has also come out recently on national TV to decry a situation where he, as governor, doesn't have control over the security forces operating in his own state. So, you see, apart from the governors, I don't know whether the organizer, that is Media Trust, has invited the operators of our national security at the federal level, because these are the real people, honestly, beyond the governors. But of course, the governors' role is also serious, because they should provide good governance, and good governance should provide for a situation where at least poverty will be reduced. There will be more hope in the society. The tendency where a 2-year-old or 3-year-old will be roaming the streets of our cities in a most hopeless manner, it should be decried, it should be stopped. And I read a bit of psychology at the tertiary level, and I remember reading about a psychologist saying, if a child doesn't grow up with his own mother, the first argument is that love is learned from mother. That is, we learn this art of love from our own mothers. When you pick a child as young as maybe 2 years or younger or slightly older from his mother and throw him into the street to fend for himself, you are depriving him of that crucial word called love, and you are replacing it with that dreadful word called hate. And by the time he grows up, he will have a situation where he will feel, and this is there in psychology, he will have a situation where that boy will have the feeling that the society doesn't like him, the society hates him, because it's a society that does not fend for him, that does not care for him. But the thing is not just the society, it's parental. So we as parents also have our own role to play. If you know you can't fend for children, for God's sake, don't bring them to this world. Honestly, don't bring them to the world. Exercise birth control so that, you don't have to, your wife doesn't even have to get pregnant, not to talk of getting back to children that you can take care of. So it's a very serious issue.
How do we begin to create the needed awareness and education for some of these issues? Because like you mentioned, it's not just a one-person issue. You cannot solve the problem. These children are in their thousands. Unfortunately, these children are predominantly in the northern part of Nigeria, where unfortunately education about birth control, family planning, some would say has not really penetrated as much as it should. So where do we start to address this problem? We're talking about insecurity, and this is how deep we have gone into finding solutions.
Honestly, unless you are completely right, unless the issues are looked at from their very foundation, we are just chasing shadows. Even the security summit that is currently going on in the beautiful city of Katsina will end up not achieving much. We really have to look at it from its foundation. Parents have to play their own role, and the malams, that is the Islamic clerics, that accept these children in the name of teaching them Islamic jurisprudence and the rest, should be more realistic about it. They should know that they are going to answer for their actions in the day of reckoning. If they feel, some of them feel they are doing it to gain rewards, but they are not getting any rewards. And you see, I followed one of these children in Sokoto to the school where he came from, and I saw the malam beating one of the children, beating him mercilessly. And I inquired. The malam said the boy didn't bring him food, and that is a boy who didn't also even get the food to eat. So for God's sake, that is an entrenchment of slavery. The world has abolished slavery successfully, but up to now, in reality, in northern parts of Nigeria, there is a form of slavery that is at play, and that form of slavery is even more dangerous than the one that we have had centuries ago. This thing about almajiranci, honestly, should be addressed. It's a very, very serious issue. It has nothing to do with Islam, because if you go to the headquarters of Islam in Saudi Arabia, you won't see that. Not just Saudi Arabia. Even if you go to Niger Republic, that is one of the poorest countries in the world, you hardly find that obtainable. Every parent is responsible for his own children. But here we are in a situation where you are married, you are ill-equipped, you hardly have anything to do, yet you are married to 4 wives. I'm not against marrying 4 wives. I'm not against it, if you can fend for them. Even more than 4 wives for those who are not Muslims. If you can fend for them, fine. If you are going to have 10 children, 20, 30, 100 children, if you can fend for them, fine. But if you know you cannot fend for them, for God's sake, why don't you face reality? Why don't you fear God and do what is real? So government should impose a law where these children, I think it was done around 2019, between 2019, 2020 and 2021. In some states in the north, if you remember, those children were picked from the streets and returned to their states of origin. That should continue, honestly, because it has nothing to do with Islam. What time do they even have to go to school to learn the Holy Quran? They don't even have the time. These are children thrown to the street and left to their own devices. For God's sake, imagine your own child, a 2-year-old child, 3-year-old child, roaming the streets, left to his own devices. You can imagine the danger. That boy will grow up feeling the society hates him, and he's going to revenge. And that revenge is going to be merciless.
And do you think that this is what is manifesting?
This is what is manifesting. All these Boko Haram people that you see, or rather most of them, even the bandits. Now bandits find it so convenient. Our security forces have been doing a very excellent job in terms of killing them or neutralizing them. Let me use what they use. They have always neutralized these bandits in their thousands. You would think that by now the bandits ought not to exist anymore. But how do they keep replenishing? How do they keep restocking? So they keep doing so because there is an army that is ready for recruitment.
So you feel at this point, more or less, the reason why it has thrived is because the North might have unintentionally become a breeding ground to recruit some of these children who may or may not have experienced some of these things that you described.
Definitely. And another thing is, I hope the Security Summit is going to address that, is the, I mentioned abandonment of the of those on the lower rank of the society. There is also the issue of our graduates. In their hundreds of thousands working the streets also, especially in northern Nigeria. Because you see, unfortunately, I hail from northern Nigeria, I'm from Kano. So I think nobody will accuse me of tribalism if I mention some of the negative things happening. In the whole of Nigeria, northern Nigeria is where you find less assistance. I mean, you find less and less pure and pure rich persons supporting the downtrodden members of the society.
Also.
And you see, most of them are Muslims. Probably 90% of people in the Northwest are Muslims. Probably even more. And Islam specifically talks about building an economy in which nobody will be poor to the extent where we see on the streets of northern Nigeria. That is a zakat. That is an economy, you just give 2.5% of your wealth yearly to the needy. If we do that, and honestly, we did a calculation. Somebody from the north, one of the richest persons in Nigeria, we did a rough calculation of his wealth, as mentioned officially, and we found that yearly he ought to be dishing out around 70 billion naira in zakat, and that 70 billion naira is just 2.5% of his wealth. So imagine one person giving out 70 billion naira yearly, and we have billionaires in their thousands in the Northwest.
So what would now be your expected outcome of this summit? And perhaps if you would put it to a ranking, what would you expect to see first and see last in terms of action?
In terms of action, I know the good thing about it is that unlike other previous summits, even recently the northern part of Nigeria has had a summit here in Abuja, but it has had no impact. But this one, I'm hopeful it is going to have impact because it has been, firstly, it is being organized by Daily Trust, a very serious organization. Secondly, I know that the managers of media trusts are going to follow up on this issue. They are not going to rest on their oars. I am confident that Daily Trust newspaper, which is the most trusted across Nigeria, is going to insist on the authorities or our policymakers doing what is right. Because that's the only way media trust will not end up wasting its time. It should insist in implementers of our policies, of our laws, doing the right thing. Unfortunately, some of our lawmakers are the ones breaking the laws and contributing directly to insecurity. A situation where graduates that I mentioned, end up roaming the streets without getting employed. What happened? We have had job vacancies all over the place. But if you are not a son of someone, you can't come near it. The nearest you can come near it is to be asked to pay maybe 5 million naira to get a job offer. Maybe in your whole generation, that is you, your parents, your grandparents, and the entire progeny, nobody has ever had 1 million at a time. And here you are being asked to provide 5 million naira to an unscrupulous politician who has used his connections to corner job offers. That issue must be addressed honestly, and the people that are mostly guilty in that are our legislators. The corner job offers, some of them even go to the terrible extent of selling those offers. So I hope the Security Summit is going to look at that issue. Even if it doesn't look at it, we are going to ask the media trust, somebody like me will write a memo and ask that issue be investigated and hammered on.
Indeed.
I believe policymakers are afraid of Daily Trust, let me tell you, because it's a media that is known to be credible, thoroughly credible.
It gives us a lot of joy that the populace trust the media trust and also trust all of what we put in effort to put together. With that being said, Suleiman Uba Gaya is the CEO and group editor of Sky Limit Media Group, and he's been with me this morning to review the newspaper headlines and of course discuss issues around security, especially as it relates to security situation in the Northwest on the heels of the Northwest Security Summit happening in Katsina State. Trust TV will be bringing that event live to you to watch across all of our platforms. And of course, it's been a lovely conversation with the editor here with me in the studio. And that's a wrap on the program. We do hope you enjoyed the conversation from the start of the program to this point. Remember, you could follow the activities of Daily Trust and Trust TV and the entire Media Trust across all of our social platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also join Trust TV live stream on YouTube. I'm Sagir Ibrahim. Thanks for watching. Join us again.